Sruma is an economist, a banker, and an academician. He's a policy maker, but he's also a negotiator. I'll talk about that. And Professor Sruma was my boss when I was in Bank of Uganda, by the way. Oh. I worked in Bank of Uganda for some time before I came into the civil society. I have been following the works of Professor Sruma. He is a person who has been in so many, can I say, contradictory spaces. From the central bank, he has been to Washington. You know, we have what we call globalization of policy making, you know, and maybe he will talk about that. You see, some of these policies we implement, they are negotiated in Washington by the IMF World Bank, and he has been there, and we'll talk about that he has to go to Washington to defend our policies. You know, we have to go to Geneva, you know, in the WTO to defend our trade policies. So he has been there. But also, he has been among us as civil society. He has been the chairperson of Uganda Debt Network, and I found that really, really amazing, you know, that he has been able also to offer words of wisdom and, you know, guidance to the civil society. I remember Dr. Sruma, I think you were speaking on a meeting organized by ACODE, and you said that every citizen should live like a human being. And for me, that was really profound, that every citizen should live like a human being. And by living like a human being, it means that there should be services, isn't it? Social services, water, you know, health, education, you know. You should have decent jobs. You should have an income, you know. That's how a human being lives. And that's why we are here today talking about investment policies. It's just one of those policies, but there are other policies which we want you people to understand. You know, investment, trade policies, agricultural policies, climate, you know, digital policies, to question, are they working, you know, so that we can be able to live as human beings or not, you know. This meeting is important because we want the young people, because tomorrow you are the people who are going to be in the Ministry of Finance, and you will sit there and start telling us that we have liberalized the economy, it's private sector led, and you say, will that policy be able to enable us live like human beings? You know? In Seatini, we question, and Professor Sruma knows this because he has colleagues who started Seatini. Seatini is a brainchild of people like Yash Tandon, who think like Professor Sruma, and they are friends, they are colleagues. And in Seatini, we question and we put alternatives on that table, you know. We question, you know, things like private sector led. If we are saying private sector led growth and development, will it deliver? What will it take for such a policy to deliver? And for us in Seatini, we talk about an alternative development paradigm. Professor, you have been Chancellor of Makerere University. I think there is something which has to be done when it comes to our education system. I'm an employer in Seatini. I get students who come into the institution and they know nothing about policies, about policy work, how policies are made, nothing. And that's why we get people like Herbert We go to universities to train them that there is a life beyond regression analysis in economics. So, Professor, that's an area which we need really to address. In Seatini, we have a graduate training program. In fact, we have some people here as graduate trainees. When they come into Seatini, we have to retrain. Herbert, we always share with Herbert to reorganize. That now you have come, the reality of economic policy making is beyond the book work which we do. So I think we need to talk about that. So this meeting is also important for you young people to appreciate policies, policy making. What are those policies which work for the people? And policies are very, very important. People talk about poverty eradication, want to eradicate poverty, but what framework are you using for your poverty eradication? So policy making is very, very, very important. That's why Professor Suruma will get on the plane, go to Washington, tell World Bank, this is the policy we want, and negotiate that, because whatever actions follow from those policies will determine whether we live as human beings or we live below, human beings. Today, we have an economy, a growing economy, but it's a jobless growth. That's why, and all of you are worried, I know, after Makerere, where am I going to get a job? Isn't it? Are you okay? Isn't it? Aren't you worried about getting a job or you are sorted? Are you sorted? But you look so comfortable, as if you are saying, what is she talking about? For me, I already have a job in the bank. I already have a job in a ministry. I can be a legal officer somewhere. Are you sorted? Are you sorted? And please, by the way, there are so many skills which you need to learn. Learn how to communicate. Learn how to engage. I have had people who come to looking for a job. You ask, they answer one word, yes, and they keep quiet. Learn to communicate. Those are soft skills which you need. So I'm asking, are you sorted? No. You are not. Why aren't you sorted? Why aren't you sorted? We have been talking about professors in Bank of Uganda, and there are jobs in Bank of Uganda, and there are jobs in banks all over, commercial banks. And there are industries where you can go and work as economists, planners, as legal officers. Why aren't you sorted? Okay, connections.
I think the problem is that most of us want this organization on the point of permanent investment rather than.
You want to do what?
I would think, in my opinion, that most of us want to enter these positions, these companies or banks from the position of permanent placement rather than undertaking that when we finish.
But where are those companies?
They are within. In my opinion.
They are there.
No. No. Officers are there. We just need to.
So you are sorted, because if if the place that the companies are there, the industries are there, the banks are there, so what you need to do is to work on your skills, isn't it? So those are issues which we need to look at. Are the jobs there? Why are our graduates going to Saudi Arabia? So we need to question, what kind of growth do we have? How do we get a growth which provides jobs and decent jobs? Robin, I will talk about that. Decent decent jobs. How do we ensure that we have those jobs? Lastly, I want to talk about why we are talking about policies and policy review. We are at a crossroad. Globally, the world is at crossroads. There are so many economic challenges. We had challenges as Uganda, as developing countries, even before COVID. COVID made the situation worse. So now we got COVID, the economy contracted, we got what else? What other challenges? The Russia-Ukraine war. What other problem which has affected our economy? What? Imported inflation. Okay, I'm not an economist, you talk about that. Another one, high population, that can be a pro. Another problem, we have climate change, the climate crisis, we have the debt crisis. The other time, Bank of Uganda came up with statistics that every 100 what? Every 100 shillings we collect in taxes, how many shillings go to debt repayment, interest repayment? Don't you read newspapers? Some of you are economists, isn't it? Prof, this is what I was saying. They know regression analysis. They can put it back in the test, but looking at what's going on is very important. So the world is at crossroads. We are facing so many challenges. We are indebted, there are challenges. And we are saying that maybe it's high time we reviewed our policies. Are they working for us? Will they be able to get us out of these challenges we are finding, where we find ourselves? So that's why, as Seatini, we are reviewing, and we will call you back to look at the trade policy, to look at the agricultural policy. So this is just one of those policies we want to look at, and we want you, the young people, to tell us, what do you think about what's going on and what kind of policies we should be putting in place. So that's why we are here, and that's why we are very, very happy to have Professor Suruma here with us. Please listen to him. He has given us this time. Ask questions, ask where you haven't understood. Some of us, like I have said, we speak what we are speaking because we have listened to them. When you listen to somebody like Suruma, Professor Suruma here, it's like you are condensing about 10 or 20 books and articles. Isn't it? It is. So please listen, ask questions, ask clarifications, because it's not every day that we have such people. But going forward, like I said, we'll be inviting you for other policies, and we'll be inviting eminent people to talk to you. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Professor Suruma. The floor is yours. A presentation. Okay, Professor, we are bringing the projector.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Jane Alunga, the Executive Director of Seatini. And before we bring in Professor Ezra Suruma to take us through a presentation, because the projector is being brought out, we need to be a little patient for the same to be able to. But also, I would like to reflect on a number of things that Ms. Jane Alunga has shared already. I hope we are tickled to engage. Are we? it's important for us to also ask the hard questions here, because this is a platform where at least we have several people who can be able to answer questions. And it's important to also think beyond the economics that we study. Because I remember while I was in school, I also did economics, but I mean at A level. But the economics that I studied, I was very, very good. I was very good at economics. But after school, there are those realities that you're exposed to, where you see that, you know, what you studied also has to be reflected upon. You have to interrogate it and look at the context, especially the context of the economy, where we are right now. Are we still caught up in that economics that we studied? All that economics should be rethought. There is one of our academicians and policymakers who talks about economics that works. But we need economics that works for the economy. So it's not the other classroom economics, but the economics that works for the economy. And how can we make these policies? Because investment policies are part of economics, isn't it? Those are economic issues. And actually at Seatini we say that we work on economic policies whenever we're introducing ourselves, because economic policies include a cocktail of policies such as fiscal or tax-related policies, trade-related policies, and investment-related policies. All those are economic policies, but we also have other policies, like intellectual property rights, we have competition policy, digital-related policies, among others. And it's very, very important for all of us to be alive to our context, but also the policy-related issues. The budget for the next financial year has started. It's still at nascent stages because there is the process of the tax bills that feeds into the budget process. In fact, Seatini Uganda hosts the Tax Justice Alliance of Uganda. We are the secretariat for the Tax Justice Alliance of Uganda. And the Tax Justice Alliance of Uganda is a loose coalition of civil society organizations that strive to promote or to advocate for inclusive, equitable, and accountable tax systems in Uganda. And as you were invited here, one of the things that I personally expected us to do was to check out the Seatini website, be able to see what's being posted there, how it relates to this conversation, so that we can make a meaningful contribution. And I would like to also introduce our rapporteur. We have a dedicated expert who is capturing all the views and perspectives that we will be sharing. She's seated right there at the back. You're welcome. She's Miss Anne, and she'll be sharing with us later. Because the outcome of this dialogue is a manifesto. We would like to come up with a manifesto on the investment, making the investment policies work for the youth. But the discussion will lead or culminate into the manifesto. So it's important for all of us to make our voices heard. At Seatini, we talk about being participated. Being participated is for you not to say something or anything, and then other people make decisions on your behalf. So you've been participated. So we don't want to participate anyone here. We want you to participate. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. Please contribute and shape the discussions so that the economy can work for you, so that the policies can work for you, and you are the future leaders and the future, actually you are leaders already, but you are the future policy makers. At Seatini we have the graduate training program. I know you've heard about graduate training programs. Nearly every corporate organization has the same, right? But ours is a bit different. And what the graduate training program at Seatini aims to achieve is to shape the next generation of critical thinkers, policy analysts, and social justice champions. Because the kind of work we do at Seatini is policy-oriented. We are not into service delivery, we are into policy analysis, research, advocacy, but also alliance building. We raise awareness, we build capacity of stakeholders in order to effectively influence these policy processes but also be able to make their voices heard in these policy processes. I'm actually going on and on because I know the project is not yet here. So I would like to give us an opportunity to raise any questions based on the remarks by the Executive Director of Seatini, in case there are any questions, so that as we wait for the projector, you are also engaging.
We don't have to wait for the projector.
Okay. We may not wait for this. Okay.
Okay, we can.
All right. So
we can proceed.
I would like now to take this singular honor to invite and welcome once again Professor Ezra Suruma to lead us into some sharing, a keynote speech that will be also pointing to the issues that we've already engaged on, but it's also important that we get words of wisdom from Professor Ezra Suruma, because he's been around, he's seen it all, he has participated in these policy processes, and so the presentation that he's going to make is very critical to shaping these discussions and also to empowering you with insights so that you can shape investment policies so that they work for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Howard. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you all the community at Seatini for inviting me to come. And can you hear me though? Could I use a microphone? I think, yeah, it's a good idea. I'm happy to have the opportunity to be here with you. The organization Seatini, yes, I have interacted with it a number of times, and mainly, as Jane said, with Yash Tandon, who is one of the founder members, and others. And I'm happy that they are committed to social change and social justice, and giving room for alternative economic policies, economic views in our country and in our region. So, I'm making preliminary remarks before I come to my main presentation. The perception that we have of the economy is shaped by very, very many things that we hear, that we read, and we use the English language, and we think we know what we are talking about. But quite often, after a long time, we find that we actually don't know what's going on. And this becomes the difficulty of life. Do we know anything? We're just circulating through the universe for a temporary period of time, after which we leave the world, and others come and they go through the same process over and over and over. Recently I was reading the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, and Solomon, the writer, was really, he worked so hard to become wise. And at the end of it all, he said it is all emptiness. It is emptiness. Wealth gold, gardens, empires. It was very emptiness. But he said it's good for a woman to enjoy a good meal. And if you like wine, have a glass of wine and be happy in the short time that you have in the world. I don't want to discourage you about life, but I'm mainly saying that what we call knowledge, what we know, these are very, very complex issues. But we are here now. We are breathing, we are seeing, we are hearing. Let's be thankful for that, taking one day at a time. Now that we are here, how can we best use the time that God has given us, enabling us to be here? I'll give you take advantage of my age to give you a historical basis of the economy. I was born during the colonial days at the end of the Second World War, 1945. And so for the first 17 years of my life, we were under the British rulers, and most of our people were involved in agriculture as a basis of life. So we had what you may call a traditional economy. Many people had one wife, many had many wives. They produced children. These children were brought up in the rural areas where perhaps 98% or 99% of our people lived. And they lived on the land. They lived on the land. We had land. And the land was the basis of our existence, either growing food, looking after animals, chickens, goats, sheep, cattle. There's some element of hunting, but not too much. And of course, we use the products of the land, trees and grass, to construct shelter, homes in which we lived. We used products again of the land, firewood for power, to cook food and to light during the night. We had varied distances that we had to travel to get water. We still have even today. Some are lucky to be near good water. Others have traveled many, many kilometers to find water. So that's today I hear people calling it subsistence economy. And they look down on it as if, traditional economy. But that's how we lived. We owned land. We didn't rent. Then the colonial people came and they said we had to grow cotton and coffee and tobacco and tea And in some cases, they enforced the production of those who came to be known as cash crops. Cash crops, meaning you could produce something, sell it for money, for paper, currency, and then that currency presumably will be of some value. And some of our people resisted. So now you have introduced chiboko, Kenny. You have chiboko coffee. If you didn't grow it, you didn't produce it, you were caned. If you didn't do it the way you're supposed to do it, there was a chief, the Muruka chief or some other chiefs, they would come and take you and cane you and punish you for not doing what the white people wanted. They also introduced taxes which had to be paid in currency. So again, you're forced to work or to produce something you could sell in order to get money to pay tax, because paying tax had to be done in cash, couldn't be done in kind. So now what you have is the introduction of money. Before, money was paper money certainly was not used in our traditional economy. There are some other items that could be used as some sort of medium of exchange, but was not a big deal. So, to cut a long story short, currency, money, finance became increasingly an important aspect of a new economy, the colonial economy. And we had Indians who were mostly engaging in trade. So we have imported goods now, which require currency in order to buy them, so that we are no longer satisfied with traditional soap. Find that we need to buy soap and salt and a few other items that we didn't know about before become interesting. Of course, clothing became important. Some people even started wearing shoes. So you have new products that are imported, which require currency. So the economy changes from a purely subsistence traditional economy into sometimes we call it a dual economy, the traditional subsistence economy and the money economy, as we are calling it these days. Now, perhaps even more important than that was the introduction of education. Modern education. Traditional education, you did what your parents did. You cultivated, you harvested, you learned how to cook, you learned how to dry food and to preserve it. And then when you became 18 years old, you got married and started your own home. And the community, at least in my area, cooperated and made sure that everybody was at the home. They help you in construction, you work together, and in a short time you have your own home. And you're given some land, and you start off, you build your own home. That's the traditional economy. I want to emphasize the concept of belonging, the concept of a contract. There is an unwritten contract, excuse me, of which the human family rests. When a man comes together with a wife or with a woman and they produce a child, there is an unwritten contract. You can call it love. But out of that relationship, you produce a child, a human being. And when you produce a human being, you don't throw them away. You look after them. You may not have signed a contract, but there's a natural law and tradition that says you produce a human being and you have to look after that human being until it grows up, and you teach it how to eat, how to behave, how to survive. And that's how the human race survives. But we introduce modern education and says that send the children to a certain place for learning. We send the children there. Few people who are getting hearing and religion and so on, and they say, Shoma, to read. They send the children to read. So they go and they're learning reading and arithmetic and history and science. I don't believe that my parents, though my father could read, he never questioned what I was being taught. It was not at the level of saying, what are they teaching you? Or you're spending all this time in school, so many hours in the day, what are they teaching? He never, at no time did he ever ask me what I was being taught. So I went there, they taught me, they even beat me, that I should learn faster or better. I continued, and here I am, I have a PhD. But now, the new knowledge is abstract and separated from what we are normally trained to do in order to survive. Why did we accept this education? It's a complicated question, but there was hope. There was hope that if you got educated, you may have a better life. And as we said, money started to come. So my brother-in-law, who married my sister, my eldest sister, I think he had 4 years of education, 3 or 4 years, and he got, they call it a vernacular certificate. He could teach in vernacular. And he was getting a little bit of money. Now he was no longer digging. And with that little bit of money, he was surviving. And people said, hey, so you can survive without digging. And more people started sending their children to school. And it went on and on and on, increased. 1997, the government of Uganda declared universal primary education. In 2006, when I was Minister of Finance, the children who completed the universal primary education are now ready for secondary school. We said, hey, what do we do now? I said, let's admit that batch on universal secondary education. We 1 year at a time. And we did. So then they had to find what to do after secondary school, university. Now the question is what to do after university. There is no contract. The presumption is that when you finish your contract with the school gives you a certificate of completion that you move into another contract somewhere. If there is no contract, we have a fundamental contradiction. What do you do? Because in the traditional economy, when I became 18, I got married, I got a house, I got land. If I was a girl, I got married. And that's how it was. There was a predictability, you could predict what would happen. Now the colonial economy, a new colonial economy, because only in 1962 they said we are now independent. See, at Kororo, I've seen they put a fence around it as a maze. I saw the Union Jack, British flag coming down, and the new Ugandan flag going up. And Mr. Botha was handed for instruments of power, the Constitution. So Uganda is now independent. This is really abuse of the language. How can you say the country is independent? Even America is not independent. Even China is not independent. There's no country which is independent. Why do you say they are now independent? Nothing has really changed. The Indians continue to sell their shops which they owned in all the urban areas. The coffee continues to be grown for export, and the cotton. And those of us who were in school, I was in senior 1, I think, at the Buddha. I continued, I didn't see any change. All my teachers were white. Later on, I think we got one black teacher. Nothing changed. But I had been to Kororo and so they are now independent. As far as I tell, nothing changed. Now, instead of every teacher being British, some Americans started coming in, a few Americans. And later on, the Americans advertised scholarships. So before, I went to UK for further training. But now, there was a new window after quote unquote independence. So I applied for a scholarship and I went to America. Before I went, I was at Nakawa studying accounting at Moods here. And I had a white female teacher. When I told her I was going to America, she was very angry. She said, "You regret it."
Why?
She didn't want me to go to America. She wanted me to go to UK. She's so these people can actually now go out of somewhere else outside the United Kingdom. She was very angry. So maybe that's, I don't know if that's what independence meant. But the economy, what you call economy, did not change very much. However, this was a time when we had a Cold War between Russia and America, but also it was a war between capitalism and communism. Communism being a new idea of a labor-based economy as opposed to a capital-based economy or free enterprise economy. Now, Cold War meant war. As a new country, we had to find where do we belong. Do we belong with the communists or we belong with the capitalists? And what does it all mean? Before we became independent, the World Bank sent a professor from Harvard called Mason. He came and did research on Uganda and wrote a book called The Economic Development of Uganda. So, I don't know who set up a planning commission for Uganda. The concept of economic planning came from the communists, from the East. That is national planning, national economic planning. The Western capitalist economy did not plan, not on a national scale, but that's what they told us. We planned on a microeconomic scale. The individual enterprise plans for itself. But the idea of national economic planning was something that came from the new economic arrangement called communism. They made 5-year plans. So when we said that we have become independent, the African countries, we were struggling for direction. Which way are we going? The communist way? The capitalist way? There was, of course, what was called non-alignment, finding a middle ground so that you could be friendly to both sides. And so we already had some elements of national economic activities, with Uganda Development Corporation, for example, which was a government company and was involved in industries and various economic activities. We had Nighty, textile industry. We had our electricity board. So you had some elements, few elements of national economic activity. So it was not, and this had been started during the colonial period. So it was not entirely true that only free enterprise was acceptable in a capitalist economy, which we were inheriting. We are under capitalism, under British, and now the Americans are also coming on board. So Mr. Obote, who was then our president, decided to set up a planning commission to make a 5-year plan. But in his introduction to the 5-year plan, when it was finished, he said the plan has been based on Professor Mason's work on economic development. You can go and look on Uganda's first 5-year plan, and you read the foreword by the Prime Minister at that time. The Prime Minister was the head of government at that time. And so he was careful. In other words, although we are taking a communist tool of planning, national planning, we are basing it on the Western economist, Mr. Mason. So we have our legs on both sides covered. Now you may not understand the implications of that, but next door in Congo, Patrice Lumumba was their first political leader. And from the beginning, for him, he said, I am siding with Russia, with the communists. And the CIA is no longer ashamed to admit that they killed him. The American Central Intelligence Agency. It is now open secret. Why did they kill him? Because he sided with communism. So yes, we are independent, but we are not independent. Which side, which economic policy you follow depends on the global alignments, and if you're not properly aligned globally, you're going to face severe problems. Essentially, I would like to tell you that when we presumably became independent in 1962, nothing changed. Everything continued as it had been doing. It was the attempt to change the economic arrangements in 1967 by Mr. Obote to nationalize banks, which were all foreign. It was that which brought his downfall. A coup was organized, a military coup was organized, and he was removed and replaced by Idi Amin in 1971, January 1971. Obote's, he issued the Common Man's Charter, a move to the left. To the left means to communism, to socialism. He was copying Nyerere in Tanzania. And that move was the end of his regime. So I'm saying this to say that although we became independent, we're expected to continue the colonial system as we found it, as we inherited it. We are not supposed to change it. And if you try to change it, you'll pay a price. And we paid a very high price because after Obote was overthrown and Idi Amin took over, I don't know how to describe him. He did his own thing. Actually, you could say that we became independent in 1971. Because Idi Amin did whatever he wanted, nobody knew what to do next. Why? He said, hey, I dreamt these Indians are bad for us. All Indians must go. Because you dreamt? Okay, and Indians went. I was in America at that time. They sent them away in 1972. I came back in 1973, started lecturing at Makerere. And Indians had been chased. The shops were empty because they are the ones who had owned the shops. When they went, people divided the goods they had left. They got finished, and that was it. Now we were there, we had money, but there was nothing to buy. And things became consistently worse. Shortages continued to increase. And people started to organize to remove him, and he killed them. And yeah, the situation was hard. So, but he made a mistake. He attacked Tanzania, and Tanzania responded and came and removed him. And there was no economy now. It's 1980. 1979 is, I had left 1975 to go and finish my PhD. So when I finished, I remained teaching in America. When Amin was overthrown, I came back and rejoined Makerere. And then there was no economy, there was no fuel, no cars, there was nothing actually. So I said, now what do we do? I was teaching economics. But what economics do you teach? I decided to join politics. One of my colleagues, Professor Musa Mshanga, made a statement at Makerere, I think he was a sociology professor. There are two statements. One, if intelligent people refuse to join politics, they must accept to be ruled by fools. Please remember that. If intelligent people refuse to join politics, they must accept to be ruled by fools. He was quoting Plato. And I said, I spent 10 years under Idi Amin, running and coming back, and now more fools are coming. How much of this do we have to bear? Then one day I was on my way to the guest house in Makerere. A friend of mine said, aren't you going to the lecture? I said, which lecture? He said, there's a lecture at the Lower Lecture Theatre by Joshua Mjeni. I said, okay, let me go. And Joshua Mjeni said, look, we need a third force. These Catholic parties and Protestant parties and Kabaka Yeka parties, they are not helping us. Let's come together and make a third force, a non-sectarian force, and we move the country forward. I said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. I joined him. We formed a party. The rest is history. Later on, we were invited by Museveni and other people in government. We formed the Uganda Patriotic Movement. We were beaten. Only one of us went through for elections. Honorable Chionga, who is going to succeed me as Chancellor of Makerere University. And then the army started coming for us. They came for me in Mutual Hall. God said I told them I wasn't there, and they left. I was looking at them, and I survived. Then I had to be in exile for 6 years. So, but we started something. And when you look at us and say, you people, why are you ruling us? It's because we got organized. Understand? If you want to take over and remove us, you have to be organized. We didn't do it for personal gain. We did it because we got tired of violence, we got tired of empty shops, we got tired of the hopeless life. So, but now, what has happened? We had 10 years of Idi Amin. Now there is, the only economy left is the traditional one. The one of the Indians and the shops and salt and what, finish the goods, there was nothing to do. And unfortunately, when Obote came back, and Obote too, the war continued. Civil war, and so the situation continued to get worse. The infrastructure, the roads were impassable. There were very few vehicles anyway. When I became director of research in 1987 at the Central Bank, I was in the fuel desk was under my department. We didn't have $5 million to import fuel for the country. That's all we needed, $5 million every month. But we didn't have it. So you'd go fuel station, or you didn't go, you'd hear that there is fuel at such and such a station. Oh, really? Then you run. When you reach there, you find, Quisha, fuel is finished. Okay. It's hard for you, I know, to imagine such a situation. Read my book, by the way, Advancing the Ugandan Economy. All these things are there. We are coming up with a new edition very soon. And you need to know the background to what we call the Ugandan economy. So, by the time we come to the NRM takes over in 1986, I was a professor in Maryland, in the USA. They called me to come back and join Mr. Chionga. As he became a new Minister of Finance, and I came to be his advisor, and also in the Central Bank. So now we had to create a new economy. But the NRM was fighting on a socialist ticket to bring socialism to Uganda. That was our ideology. But the economy at that time, the plants like sugar plant would produce some 10 tons of sugar. The government would take it and start distributing it. If you are lucky, you'll get 1 kilo. I remember going into a line at Makerere, even the lecturer had to go in a line. Whenever you saw a line, you would go in the line. Irrespective of whatever, I said, when it is finished. I said, what was it anyway? I said, it was bush. So, shortages of everything. So we had not found a solution. So the socialism, January 86, NRM comes in. By November, nothing has changed. Museveni himself is involved in distributing food and salt and soap. This is the work of the president. And from the few factories, government factories that were functioning. And I think a decision was made that this isn't working. We need to find a better solution. So we looked to the World Bank and the IMF for help. They said, okay, we will help you, but there are some conditionalities, conditions. And now we got into a new war, which I don't have time for here. Jane was referring to some of the wars I fought. I lost some. I lost many. But I don't know how I survived. The acceptance of money as an important part of the economy. We could no longer go back. We had to reform money. The Bank of Uganda had to be reformed, restructured and reformed. The banking system had to be restructured and reformed so that it could be the heart of a functioning monetary economy, monetized economy. We did that, we bought, we removed the old money, put new money. I'm happy to inform you that I chaired a committee on monetary reform. You say, what did you do? We decided never to put the face of the president on the currency again. Because in all the previous currencies, you had the picture of the president. So we said, this means every time you change the president, you have to change the currency. I said, please stop this. Have you seen a picture of a person on money? No. It's a clap for me. These are little things that you'd never know. So we removed 3 zeros from the economy. If you had 1,000, now you had 1 shilling. The government took 30% of the 1 shilling, remained with 70 cents. So money for the first time became scarce. Before everybody had money, there was nothing to buy. So we changed. Now money became scarce as a medium of exchange. And many reforms had to be made to bring back the economy. There are some improvements. People even started advertising. The first time I saw an advertisement on television, I could not believe it. Somebody is calling people to come and buy? Before we were hiding things. So sometimes it's good to have this background, because you may take things for granted. That you walk to a shop and you can buy soap, or you can buy clothing, you can buy medicine. When I was in Makerere, I used to travel to, not to Makerere, I was already in government in Bangkok, Uganda. I used to travel to Ruzira to find someone's home who sold medicine for blood pressure. Yes. He's the only one that I knew. So that's how things dangerous can be. That you didn't go to the hospital, there would be nothing in the hospital. So, having restored normal marketing, this was called stabilization by the IMF and World Bank. We stabilized the economy. And in my view, it was basically going back to where we had been earlier. Coffee had continued to be the main cash crop. Cotton had declined. It started coming back. Tea started coming back, and so on. But this time, other crops such as maize also started to have a market value. So the old idea of cash crops, I think, disappeared. Now everything is a cash crop. You can produce almost anything and get cash. But it is still a problem of land, because the educational program has separated people from land. You come to school and all your hopes are on the books. If you read the books and pass the exams and get a certificate, you'll be fine. And it seemed to be working for a while. Those jobs were many compared to the population. But now, the people in urban areas have increased. In urban area, there's very limited land. There's separation of you, the students, from the land. And yet you have no contract assured. While you are in school, there is a measure of contracting in the sense that somebody is paying your tuition or you are paying yourself. And the school says, if you do this, we will do this. So you have that relationship and you stick with it and you struggle until you get your certificate. But when that is done, what next? What does the economy promise? That's what Jenny was asking. And I think now we are facing the fundamental contradiction between capitalism and communism. Or if you like, why is it that Marx came up with the idea of Marxism or of communism as opposed to capitalism, where the capitalist is the owner of basic resources needed to produce goods and services. And so he employs labor, he has land, and of course he has capital. Labor, to the extent that it is hired and used, they're paid, that's how they survive, they're exploited, some are even enslaved. But that's how the capitalist economy has grown. But now for us, how do we manage? Okay, we have inherited free enterprise. Free enterprise means you are free to enterprise. You are free to start any business, produce any product, any good, any service, if you can find a market for it. And you compete. It's competition. Of course, competition can be severe. The model assumes perfect competition. That's just on paper. There's no such thing as perfect competition. But certainly there's competition. So, but in order to produce a product or a service, you have minimum of the three factors of production: land, labor, and capital. We have some land left, some of us. Most of us, we don't have. Have to find a place to rent. That means you have to have capital to pay the rent. And capital is where I have been fighting for Ugandans to own their own banks. And the imperialists have made sure that I fail. Most people don't know what I'm talking about. They think I'm a stupid old man. And they're probably right, because you have a global empire which is controlling the world. If you say you're fighting it, in a way you can say you're stupid. Who do you think you are? But I'm a Bible reader, and I know that Bible David killed Goliath, so I'm not afraid to fight giants. There's always hope. We have to survive somehow. And not everybody is like to be a capitalist. Able to have enough capital to employ, to have enough land, to have employ labor and produce a product and access the market. These are very complex matters. A few years ago, I tried to produce chili and organize and got phytosanitary certificate and put it on the DHL or wherever, send it to China. A few weeks later, I got information that my sample was destroyed. They didn't tell me why.
They didn't charge you. they charged you for destruction?
No, they didn't charge me. They just destroyed. Later on, I read Mr. Tandon's book that trade is war. And yesterday I read the paper and said, oh, now Chinese have okayed Ugandan chilies. A friend of mine whom I was sending to several years ago is one who sent me the message, and I saw the photo of our Vice President and Minister of Agriculture and so on in China. And now our chili can go to China. I hope so. I have a shipment of coffee on the way to China. I'm praying that we'll get there. So, we have a very difficult decision to make on how to provide contracts to people who are coming out of school, who no longer own land. All they have is the papers you're talking about, certificates. 2 points. One, I believe that every one of us is gifted, and that we should use our gifts to serve God and serve others. And it's important for each one of us to know, to discover the gifts that we have been given, or the gifts that we have, which we can use in interest of serving others. Not just serving ourselves, but serving others. And that's important, that's primary, irrespective of the economic system that we may be under. A human being is unique, is gifted. I used to doubt that I was gifted, but I had to ask God forgive me for being so foolish. Because when you have a working brain, that's a great gift. A gift is something you haven't paid for, isn't it? Something which has been given to you, and you haven't paid for it. And gratitude is recognizing the value of that gift and being happy and thankful for having that gift. So, being of a sound mind, having hands, having feet, being able to stand, to walk, working hard, all these are gifts that each of us has been endowed with. And I believe God has given them to us so that we use them to survive, help each other, one another, to be a blessing to others, to be parents, to be brothers and sisters. So there is that unique aspect of the individual person. How do I exist in the world? My advice is be humble and make the most of the gifts that God has given you. Don't waste the gifts that you have. Don't wait to grow old before you realize that, oh, I could have used my gift. to help others. It's not all about you, of course. In economics, we create income by supplying a good or a service, not to ourselves, but to others. So it's not a making of what you like, it's a making of what others want and need, contributing. And you don't have to be in the newspaper every day to show that you have done great things. Because maybe you need to start with your neighbor. Maybe you need to start with your young brother or sister in helping, in lending a hand, in caring, and building up from there. That's where, when God gave me the parish model vision, I did not know what it was all about. When I presented it to the government, he said it sounded good, but I think nobody understood it. Still nobody, I think, few people understand it. But I believe that in a country like ours, which is predominantly rural, most people live in the rural areas. But of course, we also have urban parishes. You need an area where you can have some root, where you belong. If I say I'm a Ugandan, yeah, oh great, so what? I don't exist in the whole of Uganda. I live in a certain place. I sleep in one house. That's where I eat, that's where I work. I can't be in West Nile and Teso, and I have to have some place where I have connections and roots and actions. The nature of a contract is that it's specific about what you're supposed to do, when, where, how, and what you'll be paid, or what your benefits will be. And this kind of contractual relationship may be within the parish where God has placed you. Because I have been a Minister of Finance, so I had to think nationally, even globally, regionally, globally. Fine, this is what you call it macroeconomics, isn't it? Macroeconomics, even global economics. But at the end of the day, how is each of us as an individual affected? I don't live globally. I live locally. I exist locally. And in the local environment where I am, I need to find relevance, I need to find usefulness, I need to find contacts and connections and actions. I need to find roots, I need to find shelter. But in that process, of course, I have to contribute. And so, brothers and sisters, we are living in a complex world. It becomes more and more complex by the day. The parish model did not come from World Bank and IMF. I presented it to the president in 2006. He said, it sounds like a good idea, but we can't afford it. But I was happy later on, he saw the possibility and invited me back see how we could get it implemented. But it was adopted in a hurry before we had thoroughly worked out the implementation mechanism. And so it's not being implemented well. But that should not mean that we should fail to see the importance of local action, action at the local level, where the people are on the ground. Many of you, when we are teaching economics, it is all abstract. It's all in the air. You know, formulas. Madame Jane was talking about regression analysis, econometrics. It's all up there. And when you finish, you want food. The formulas, can you pick food from the formulas? No. You don't have any idea of how the formulas relate to the food that you must eat. The person who is in the kitchen in the village is more real with his dirty feet from the garden than you with all your pages of formulas. Application. So, the entrepreneur who is able to bring together factors of production and produce water and produce a pen and produce clothing, fine. I encourage you to do that. If you can somehow scramble the capital together, fine, please do. Create something that can be useful to the world. But I think that also we need to learn from the other side of the economic. I had to take a course called comparative economic systems. The comparative economic system, it's not just capitalism. There is socialism and communism and so on. What can we learn from these other systems? At the parish level, for example, we need organization. We need organization. Organization means contractual relationships among members of an organization and those they serve. It's not just a matter of English, you know, it's contractual. If there's an organization, there is a head who has certain responsibilities. There's a deputy head who has certain responsibilities. Those are put down. The salary is specified. The actions are specified. The work, then the secretary, there is salesman, each one has specific responsibilities. These are the contracts. In the organization, there's a contractual relationship. If you form an organization, you have to have these specific responsibilities specified in contracts. Where there is no contract, I don't know what it is. Now, if there is a cooperative, for example, at the parish, my view would be the cooperative, yes, it specifies conditions for membership. You have to pay so much to be a member per annum. Then, what are you going to produce for the cooperative? You specify how much, at what price will it be brought to the store Is there someone recording? Is there someone checking to make sure that the record is correct? Is there storage? Are there storage conditions? So the organization becomes complex, but necessary. We have to rise to this level of action. Cooperatives have been attempting to organize our people for a long time. When I was growing up, cooperatives were there. The leaders were stealing money. I think they still are. But we don't give up. The companies, if you prefer, you can form a company with people, with your friends, or to provide specific service, contracts. My view is that at the parish level, having a cooperative store where people have contract supply specific products at certain price, and they're giving credit, not money, credit. I don't want you saying, we can't form a cooperative because we have no money. This is really going too far. Everybody in Uganda is at standstill because there is no money. So should we go back to Amin's time and start printing or what? Is money the problem? No. In fact, the world is moving into a cashless society. The idea that if there is no cash, you can't do anything is foolish. But many of us have been reduced to foolishness because everybody's saying it. That's all at 30 cents. 20 cents. We can't do anything because there is no money. You must change that. If I bring main store at 500 shillings a kilogram, I bring 10 kilograms, you give me my credit of 5,000, 50,000, whatever, on my card. Then I can take whatever I want from the store up to that amount. I don't need money. The cooperative can issue its own card. It just doesn't need card, just need a record. Suruma bought 1,000 kilograms of maize. The price, agreed price is 500. He's entitled 50,000 shillings credit. He can buy whatever he wants from the store. You get me? Credit. You don't have to rely on the Bank of Uganda to print money then before you can act. So we went a bit too far in monetization. And the World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund, this is how they want us to go. They want us to rely on the shilling, and the shilling relies on the dollar, and now the dollar controls us and controls everybody. So without one from them, you are seated at 20 cents. Hasn't China become the second largest economy in the world? Is it because of the dollar? It is in spite of the dollar. Isn't Russia, doesn't it fail? Have they not failed to stop Russia from, in fact, I'm told Russia is making more money now with the sanctions than before. because they're selling more fuel to China and India and others than before. Now, I know that time is limited and we don't have unlimited time. The slides I had prepared were actually on social protection, which you talked about. In the meantime, while we are trying to figure out how to get us employed, contracted, I'm suggesting that we need social protection. Invest in social protection. Since the title was given to me about investment, what investment policies, I thought that I should. So is the project now available? I'll run through the slides and then end. Should I allow a break from the one to
Hello, hello, are we still here? Yes. In body and
Smart 24, driving business.
Oli mukyala munna bizinesi era oyagala bizinesi yeekulaakulane, gavumenti ya Uganda ekuleetedde ssente za GROW era nga weewola okuva ku bukadde buno okutuuka ku bukadde 2 n'osasula mu bbanga lya myaka 2 ate nga gw'asasula mu budde oli nnamukisa ddala. Eri abakyala abanoonyi b'obubuddamu nammwe abaliko obulemu, enteekateeka eno egenda kubakolako mu ngeri ey'enjawulo. Okumanya ebisingawo, tuukirira Post Bank, Equity Bank, DFCO, Centenary Bank, Finance Trust Bank ne Stanbic Bank oba genda ku mukutu gwaffe ogwa www.grow.go.ug oba okujja ku ofiisi za PSFU ku Kyaddondo Road e Nakasero ku kizimbe kya Trust Tower omwaliiro ogusooka oba okuweereza obubaka bwa WhatsApp ku nooti 762 3 nooti 4961. Omukisa guno gw'abakyala bonna okwetooloola eggwanga era ng'enteekateeka ya GROW evujjirirwa banka y'ensi yonna n'eteekebwa mu nkola minisitule y'ekikula ky'abantu ne Private Sector Foundation Uganda.
GROW, generating growth opportunities and productivity for women enterprises.
You want me to lead you there?
Cooking oil like no other makes your meal so sweet and scrumptious. The taste of Uganda, yeah, the taste of Uganda.